Hello one and hello all. Welcome back to the Global Gaming Network channel, a place where we get to go over everything to do with esports across the entirety of the globe. Plenty to go over today as we are packing our bags for Major number 3 with Call of Duty. Counter-Strike is back in action for Melbourne this entire week, as well as VCT and League of Legends. All of that and more, this is Today in Esports. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Today in Esports. As always, my name is Andy. Joined with me is Chris. We had ourselves a jam-packed weekend, man.
We did, and some even still going on. So I'm really excited to see what we have going on. But as you said, Major 3 is right around the corner, and we did have the qualifiers finish this week. And give us a rundown on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Chris was saying, we did have Boca Raton packing our bags for Boca Raton, this upcoming week. And that should be really exciting for Major 3 as things have been shaken up in a lot of different directions as we have been concluding throughout all of the qualifiers. Again, as it currently stands, we no longer have any of the minor tournaments. We don't have 7 qualifiers to play through anymore, so CDL points are coming at a minimum. So a lot of teams are scraping at the bottom of the barrel to get these points when required just to qualify for champs. But as it currently stands, right now, we did have a couple matches go through that did have a lot of implications for how Major 3 is going to be playing out. Starting off with Friday, we did have the Toronto Ultra going up against Miami Heretics. And this one had a lot on the line. First seed, maybe, if Miami Heretics were able to convert. But Toronto Ultra definitely needed this W to be able to get a stronger seeding. Let me explain a little bit later on down the road. But this one had just about everything. I mean, Miami Heretics with Super coming into the mix, being undefeated, looking pretty damn good along the way. The Vol Hardpoint had everything, all of that, and a lot of action as well. 7 spree out from Rancor. Guy's been shooting laser beams out of his AR all season long. Now he's got his longtime duo of Super into the mix. 134 to 128 for Toronto Ultra as we're starting to rotate back over towards another set of rotations. They're starting to look a little bit more comfortable on this map mode combinations as they are 1-0 on this split with the 250 to 193 win over the Atlanta Faze, where Miami are 1-1. They did lose to Atlanta Faze, but this one came down to the wire. A photo finish right here, dancing on P1. Kleenex Beans. They clean house. One more contest can still come through for Miami Heretics, and they have a little bit of a split pinch coming through from Real. Has to time it perfectly, but they lost their assistance in the upper hallways. That discombobulates all of this break attempt, and Miami just had no answer whatsoever. 250 to 240, a 10 score line will mean that Ultra are 1-0 up into the dealership search and destroy we go, where Toronto are also 1-1 with a 6-4 win versus the LA Thieves in that map 5, and then a 4-6 loss to Boston. We'll put an asterisk on that one. Miami, they're undefeated as far as this map mode combination is concerned, and that one was very much so on display here as we went back and forth until we had 2 rounds in a row for Miami, all the way towards a round 11 where it came down to that opening breakoff. You saw how cataclysmic it was for Toronto Ultra. Miami win that map. Now we're tied up into a swing map mode combination. Into Vol Control we go. Toronto are 0-2 on Vol Control this split with a round 5 loss, to the Thieves, which are the #1 control team in the game. But Miami, they have not played Vol Control this entire split. Doesn't mean they don't know what's going on this map mode combination. Super was running house on this map mode combination through the Challengers Elite seasons when he was still down in the pit. Very close affair, though, as far as this map 3 is concerned. I mean, honestly speaking, this is everything you wanted. A very Slay-heavy team versus another Slay-heavy team. Jodeci's versus Real was a spectacle. Super versus Benjamin Button Beans. We've had that 1v1 for so many years throughout Challengers in the European circuit, both in the pits for LAN, and now we're getting here in the Call of Duty League. And in those final few moments, last couple seconds, Super 1v the world. Nothing he could do when Toronto Ultra are able to convert an offense. They win the control 3-1. So now we go over towards the Protocol Hardpoint, where this is the final venue of the entirety of this best-of-5 series. Miami looks shook coming away from that control. Rancor was still shooting laser beams because of course he is. A massive 5 spree out of him was realistically the biggest boon for Miami Heretics throughout the entirety of this map. But continue to watch the scoreboard. Yeah, flip of the hat. Beans was double negative, goes on this massive spree. Throughout all of that, Jodeci's was still slaying, and Miami Heretics only had Rancor doing all of that, which is why they had such a massive lead at the beginning of the entirety of this this map number 4. But Toronto Ultra Beans never cut him out, goes on a 6 spree, clears all the way down inside of screens. He can always shoot as straight as the rest. He may finish ever so close to a 1.0 KD, but Beans absolutely showed up when it mattered most. Toronto Ultra were able to win this series 3-1, 250 to 190 here at the final moments of map number 4. And realistically, it's all thanks to CleanX. He is always the silent assassin when it comes down to Toronto Ultra. This guy continuously delivers, whether it's numbers and hardpoint, First Bloods in Search and Destroy, or just all-around good chemistry for his SMG duo of now Joe Deceives. CleanX is the real deal. He is obviously the player of the match. And with this series win, now Toronto Ultra put themselves in a much better position when it comes down to the seeding. We'll get into that momentarily. But Miami Heretics, that's their first series loss in their Major 3 qualifiers. And they're going to have a lot to answer for the rest of the weekend as they are hosting Major 3 as well. But we still have more action to talk about. Las Vegas Falcons were in action on Saturday. After taking down the green wall last weekend, they're going up against the Atlanta Faze. And Atlanta Faze, going in towards the series, are actually being threatened to start in the lower bracket. Las Vegas Falcons, their hardpoint has been absolutely nuts. Actually, one of the top of the league. Their Search and Destroy on the other side is actually worse than where it was when they were playing with the full Saudi team. Atlanta Faze, their hardpoint has been cataclysmic as of late. Their Search and Destroy control is still one of the best in the league. Probably one of the best Search and Destroy teams in the game, for crying out loud. Major 2 winners, Major 1 winners, Minor 1 winners, or Minor 1 winners, Minor 2. I think they got like maybe like top 4, top 8, whatever. They're the number 1 team in the game, for crying out loud. But Vegas Falcons gave them an absolute thwacking on this map number 1. Fred was definitely in his bag as he goes on this 5 spree, 19-6. You couple that along with his new SMG duo of Xnid. That's a lot of freaking kills in between 2 SMGs. 245 to 107. If you told me that's the scoreline that we would have seen when these two teams were facing each other at this point in time, back in stage 1, I would have called you a silly person, probably would have slapped you upside the head. It makes no damn sense. 250 to 133 is going to be the map 1 win here for the Vegas Falcons, and now they go in towards this dealership map number 2, where things got a little strange. And by a little strange, I mean that the Vegas Falcons couldn't even put up a single round. It was bad. Like, bad. When Atlanta Faze are just feeling themselves like this, when a multi-time MVP of Chris Simp is just dropping numbers, yeah, there's only so much you can do. So Atlanta Faze, they're going to tie up this series at least to 1 apiece. They go in towards the protocol control off of the 6-0 win. Vegas Falcons, not a whole lot they can do hands and head there for Fred. So into these control, you would really think that maybe Vegas Falcons would have had a better run of things back as far as a respawn game mode is concerned, because Fred could be running around like a chicken with his head cut off. No, not even the slightest bit. I mean, Atlanta Faze, they absolutely let them have it. Here's a stat line for you. In between maps 2 and 3, Atlanta Faze beat Vegas Falcons in under 12 minutes. Map 1 was just shy of 10 minutes long. Map 3 and 2, 2 objective game modes, lasted almost just as long as one whole freaking hardpoint map. That is how much B2A Atlanta Faze were giving to the Vegas Falcons. Golly, it was gross. And now they have a 2-1 lead in that clutch moment to be able to convert the last offense required. Then in towards a red card hardpoint we go. This is Atlanta Faze's playground. When they have been testing map pools throughout the entirety of the last stage and this one, Hacienda hasn't been too comfortable for them, but red card has always been within their wheelhouse. It was a very close start going in towards the 3rd hardpoint. You can see just basically a tied game here, but at a flip of a hat, Atlanta Faze, they just wake up. It always feels like it's Celium. He's always dropping numbers, 10-3 here, something that you can rally behind. I mean, MacArthur was just clearly shooting laser beams out of his gun. Fred was the only one maybe answering back to the other side, but RCDs and Priester were having a real tough go of things, of dealing with both Draza and Celium. And just when you deal with the AR lineup of Atlanta Faze, World Championship AR duo, then you have to deal with the tiny freaking tears. This map came down to the wire. I mean, but map 4 definitely felt like Atlanta Faze were going to either win it here or in the map 5. Celium, 84-64 KD, led the lobby as far as damage in this map number 4, but you know that he's always making a massive influence for the Atlanta Faze. And with this win here, that means that the Atlanta Faze will actually be starting in the winner's bracket, should be guaranteed more or less, but maybe not the seed that they were looking for, not like it's really mattered in the past. But now we got one last series to go over, and that went down on the Sunday. It's a really tough shake of things if you really think about it, because Dylan Rex, congratulations. You are now part of the Carolina Road Ravens. You made your CDL debut, but it's against the Los Angeles Thieves, and they are the number 1 team, or number 2 team in the game for a freaking reason. So good luck, Rex, in this best-of-5 series. LA Thieves absolutely annihilated them. Hacienda Hardpoint is where we started off this entire escapade. And yeah, maybe comfort for Rex, but when a team has just always been doing pretty bad versus LA Thieves, even a one-man change isn't going to even change it. So, I mean, maybe on LAN, you can make an argument, but I would even say that LA Thieves are that much better on LAN. The Hacienda Hardpoint, was a whole green walk for the LA Thieves. Not a single person went negative. Scrap dropped to 1.64 throughout the entirety of the series, but dropped to 2.27 in this map number 1. A 250 to 134 is an absolute B2A, if you ask me, for LAT. 34 kills out of Scrap in particular. Going in towards a dealership search and destroy, though, you felt like that maybe Carolina could give some pushback to LA Thieves. Rex has always been a big menace in challengers when it comes down to his shot, his first blood prowess, not to mention his capability on a map like Rewind, Search, and Destroy to be able to play those longer crosses. But it was actually the role that Slasher was playing into. Rex was playing more of the entry alongside of Gwyn and TJ, and it just wasn't really working out whatsoever. Map 2 was just the absolute Ghosty and Hydra show. Pick a round in LA Thieves will probably end up clutching it. Maybe not the 2 that Carolina were able to win, but I mean, you see here Ghosty on the 5 spree. Hydra's in his bag, baiting for his teammate. LA Thieves now up 2-0. In towards the vault control we go. And it was just a continuation of everything we got through the first 2 maps. I mean, Carolina, they might have been deflated away from the map number 1. Definitely deflated as far as the map number 2 is concerned. They are a better Search and Destroy team than they are a Hardpoint team, but they are going up against LA Thieves, who are highly regarded in those 2 different game modes. And they are the number 1 control team, so you know damn well when you go down 0-2 to LA Thieves, you go into that control, you're probably going to lose the series if you already lost the first 2 maps. Big Hellstorm missile for Envoy, just pushes all the way out through the arches. 9v5, last segment being worked on over at B. It is a full-on 3-0 for both the control and for the series as a whole. But, I mean, Rex, when it comes down to it, you could maybe say he had influence, but I don't think that this is a good litmus test to be able to see how Rex actually fits into this team. Tough ass when you're going up against a top 2 team in the Call of Duty League, but hey, Carolina Royal Ravens, they trust that Dylan is the right change for this team. They just recently dropped Vivid just a couple weeks ago, and now they put themselves in a situation where maybe they could be better on LAN. Maybe they could make a better influence when it comes down towards champs. But here are the Major 3 standings at the end of all the weeks to come. Yeah, that's right. That's a 5-way tie as far as the first seed is concerned. Everybody from Toronto Ultra all the way up to the LA Thieves, including Boston, Vancouver, and Miami, are all 4-1. But due to head-to-head reasons, match win rates, games win losses, there's so many different permutations in order, but it always goes down to match win, map win percentage first, and then strength of schedule gets put into it. LA Thieves are the number 1 seeded team going in towards this, and well, for the overall standings, they're probably not going to feel much lashing because of this, but the one team that is actually more benefiting from this is the Boston Breach. They're up to the 6th seed. OpTic Texas sitting there at the 8th. Cloud9 New York, Minnesota, LA Gorilla Maze, and the Vegas Falcons all need to get their trainers on as far as their lower bracket or even a Major 3 bracket as a whole is concerned, and even Major 4 to qualify for champs. Again, if you are outside of the top 8, you do not qualify for champs. And if you're outside of the top 8 for the Major 3 qualifiers, well, you start in the dang lower bracket, that's for sure. Rocker, LA Gorilla Maze, Falcons, Cloud9 New York, all teams that are outside the bubble need to make a lower bracket run. First round matches, Rex, you just had it online. Congratulations. Now you got to face Ernie on LAN. Ultra versus Heretics should bang round 1. You got a green matchup of OpTic versus Breach. Faze versus Surge. That's a rematch of the grand finals for Major 2. We got that round 1. We are eating good as a Call of Duty community is concerned. And honestly, all of that being said, I think that Major 3 down in Boca Raton should be a very good time. The way that the seeding is all fixed up, the way that the pressure is all being surmounted as far as champs being around the corner is concerned, I think that we're in for a very good weekend for a tournament is concerned. But I keep on talking about being number 1 seed. And the reason why I keep talking about it is because every single team that's gone in to be the number 1 seed has not done too well. You go back towards Major 1. OpTic Texas were the Major 1 seed. They only lost a single series count. 1 qualifier loss to the Boston Breach. What happens at Major 1? In round 1, they lost map 5 to Miami Heretics. And then they lost to the Carolina Royal Ravens just a few more rounds down the road. In Major number 2, LA Thieves were the number 1 seed. They got smacked by Boston Breach round 1, and then they had to make a lower bracket run where they inevitably lost to Toronto Ultra 0-3. So I don't even know if you want to be the number 1 seed, but at the end of the day, Atlanta Faze won both Major 1 and Major 2. So I guess it doesn't matter upon the seed, but whatever it may be, again, packing our bags, Boca Raton right around the corner at the end of this week. Should be a good time for Call of Duty.
Should be, and we'll see if they can break that first seed curse and get onto it. But let's go ahead and switch up. Let's head to the Rift a bit. Let's go over to League of Legends, switch over to that MOBA. And Well, NA is going into its super week. They are in their last week of the positioning phase, so they are playing 3 days. But let's go ahead and catch up on what's happening from Saturday and Sunday, starting with Cloud9 versus Team Liquid. And jumping into this game, very important to see who could possibly get that second or even first seed. Cloud9 came out smacking Team Liquid though. Look at this game, they're jumping in already up 5-1. And well, Team Liquid just couldn't buy a kill here. They're trying to jump on the Blabber. Blabber on that Vice can use the Voltberg to try to get out. And then look at this, smacks him one time to get the shield to stay alive. Is gonna get out. Team Liquid just wasn't able to find any momentum this game, and Cloud9 have looked the best they have ever been going into this weekend so far. Thanatos is going to be jumping on the Ambessa, doing so much damage and just getting all the kills needed. They're going to get the Baron, take that. They're going to use this momentum to start pushing into the base, and they just wanted to put a statement on this game, showing that they are indeed a much better team than we saw them in split number 1. They're going to go ahead and take this game and take a quick second before we're going into their match on Sunday. But let's take a look at Sunday's match after they finish up the Nexus here, which would be another banger of going into 100 Thieves versus Lyon. This is another match that both of these teams, Lyon trying to get that fourth place seed, and 100 Thieves trying to keep that fourth place seed. And well, right now Lyon has been doing, kind of okay in the early game versus these top 4 teams, but unfortunately again they just kind of struggled. As we see here, they were up but are going to lose 2 members. They're going to even up the game. They're going to get another lead, but once again 100 Thieves finding this, and what a final. Look at this, they have the false lives, but they're going to lose it. It's going to go off right at the end there, and they're going to get this shut down onto Licorice, and this is where 100 Thieves starts getting back into the game. They get this. They're not able to quite get Baron yet, but they're going to go ahead and find another jump onto them here. There it is, 100 Thieves showing why they are in the top 4. They are going to go ahead and clean up 4 kills to none here, and they are going to start pushing into the base. What a great job by 100 Thieves. They showed a little bit of weakness in the early game versus Lyon, but they're able to bring it back, get this win, put them securely in that top 4 position right now going into the group phase. But remember, they still do have a game today that they have to play, as well as that they are playing into Mondays. But great job to them picking that up. That win is much needed for them because they want to stay in that top 4 before they go into the group stage after this week. Now let's go ahead and jump across the pond to Europe, as they did have some games as well going over this weekend, and let's take a look at what happened. Oh, let's go into the standings first. My mistake. We have to see where they are stacking up, as we do have the current standings. As we said, this is up until Sunday, which they do have more matches today, but Cloud9 did pick up a win against FlyQuest yesterday, so they are sitting in that top speed. Liquid, Honda, and 100 Thieves sitting 3rd and 4th. But today's schedule, as I said, we do have a couple more matches, although it shouldn't change standings too much. FlyQuest versus Dignitas, Cloud9 versus Lyon, Dignitas versus Liquid, and Shopify Rebellion versus 100 Thieves. And now we'll get to jump across the pond, as I was getting a little excited earlier, but let's go ahead and see what's happening in Europe as they are continuing their matches. First up, we had Karmine Corp versus Giantx, and Giantx 1-3 going up against the 4-1 did put KC to their limit here, as we do see it quite an even game, but it would be KC who comes out in the end here. They're going to go ahead and start getting this chase down here. They'll get the kill, and from here on, they were able to get the first map win against Giantx. As you know, Karmine Corp should have been the big favorites, but Giantx are going to get a giant win here in this next game. They're going to be able to find a massive team fight here. They're going to be able to get a couple kills starting on to the mid laner here. So they're going to go ahead and jump in. We can see them fighting back and forth. They do have those false lives on there, but they're going to go ahead and start getting the kill onto Kai'Sa first. They're going to jump in, get the shutdown onto the Ahri there. That is going to be what they needed to go ahead and get into this high kill game. They're going to pick up game number 2 before going into the last game on game number 3. But this time, Karmine Corp wouldn't be deterred. They're going to go ahead, and Giantx is going to get the Rift Herald still here before they get a couple of kills. They're going to use this momentum to jump ahead and get this series win. They're going to go ahead and set at the top of the leaderboard, as they had much needed. And well, 21-12 didn't leave much room for Giantx to come back in this one here. But let's go ahead and jump into our next series of the day, which would be G2 versus BDS. And G2 sitting at the top. Well, BDS had much to say about this. Let's jump into that game. G2 versus BDS, and I love this split screen here. We can see the G2 logo coming up, but this was a massive fight for BDS though. G2 in the base, they're going to go ahead and give 2 over. A great slam by that Nara is going to help them get the kills, but on the other side of the rift, they're going to clean up more. The only one Skimon on that Mundo is going to try to get out. He would survive, but not for long, and then it would be BDS who get the game upset on G2 and a massive win for them right now. G2 was 3-0, but now they are down 1 game in this best of 3 versus BDS. Now going on to game 2, you would think G2 would be able to clean it up. Well, not so much. BDS once again coming into this game with the will to win, and they would will it. So here we see their fight against them. G2 going back, they're trying to get out, but it just wouldn't be enough. They get into the base here, they're able to get it with those Elder buff. They're going to get the kills. Look how big that Victor ultimate is getting. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to get all the kill on the caps, well, yet. He's going to get out for a little bit. Eventually, they would get that kill cleaned up, get that ace, and then take game number 2 in convincing fashion versus G2, showing some of the weakness against one of the top teams in Europe right now. Congratulations to them on picking up their win, and G2 is going to have a lot to move forward to if they want to continue in that top place. But let's take a look at those standings real quick from the weekend. Karmine Corp, as I said, with that pickup, is going to go ahead and sit at the top of the leaderboard 5-1. The rest of the teams are going to be looking for continuing their wins. We do have a couple more games today that we'll look at a little bit later. SK is playing Rogue, Koi is playing Vitality, so we'll have to see how they pick up there, as a couple of them haven't played as many matches as Karmine Corp, who are sitting at 6 currently. But great job to them. And as I said, and a super week is going on, so we do have a little bit more games that are being played, so we'll have to see how those end up stacking up. And then again, next week we do have taking on to the road, so we'll be going to Madrid. We'll tell you about all those games on Thursday before that and how you can get tickets to go see those matches there.
Always excited to hear when we get some teams packing their bags up and headed to Madrid for some esports, man. It's always a good old time indeed. But now we shift our focus all over towards Valorant, keeping the sphere as far as Riot is concerned. But VCT Americas, they are now done with the entirety of their group stage. They have completed their all group stage performances, and now we know what the playoff teams will be, but we'll get towards that one because we got some matches that did conclude to this weekend with some playoff implications. Starting off with Crew versus 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves have been rated pretty highly as of late, but Crew have been the underdogs for quite some time. They beat Sentinels in towards the pass, and a lot of people rated them high to be able to take care of 100 Thieves here. Starting off on map 1 was Fracture. It was 6-6 at the half, and both teams seemed pretty darn even, just trading back and forth, everybody getting econ online, 4 spies on every single which direction, but nobody could really get a foothold as far as Fracture is concerned. A very difficult map, if you ask me, to be able to fully execute when it comes down to offense. The defense just have very easy rotations, as here is the first round of the pistol going in towards the second half. This would end up being Crew's pistol win, on the defensive side. They absolutely let 100 Thieves have it. I mean, they won the pistol, they won the subsequent next 2. They beat 100 Thieves once they actually got their rifle round. And then they started to lose maybe 2 in a row. They bounced back with at least 1. 100 Thieves stayed fighting here as far as the last few rounds are concerned. But in this final few moment, 1 last kill, good headshot comes through from Adverso, who actually had the worst performance out of all 5 of his teammates, Mazzino was definitely the one to watch. Now we go over towards Icebox. This was Crew's map pick. You felt like with 100 Thieves losing that map number 1 off of their target bans, they set themselves up for failure, and now Crew could smell blood in the water on Icebox. They have a lot of good wins here at 13-8 versus Sentinels, and then 13-6 versus 2G Esports. Icebox was definitely their home away from home, but it continued to stay even as we were going through the first half. And then something had to give as far as another pistol round is concerned, where you guessed it, Crew were able to win yet another pistol round. Their retake was very, very good. Now, on the opposite side from the Force, 100 Thieves were actually able to win, but then ripping a handful of rounds in a row, the econ was too strong. 13-9 there in the map number 2 of Icebox. Shy had a Herculean performance, went 21-13, but Kesnet is definitely the player of the match, always will be. The Neon, the Jet performance, 69% KAST, it's exactly what you want out from your entry fragger here for Crew Esports, who now have beat 100 Thieves. They're now the number 1 seed, walking away from Group Alpha, but that's not the only action that we did end up having. G2 versus Cloud9 on the opposite side for Group Omega was also kicking off in all of the best ways possible. This is another top seed matchup. Whoever ends up winning this one ends up getting the first seed from Group Omega. Map 1 was on Icebox. this was going to be the best bet for Cloud9. It was their pick to be able to go up 1-0, but it is G2 Esports on the opposite side, for crying out loud, and they are the number 2 team from Masters Bangkok. And although there might be some meta changes, this team is absolutely nasty, and I really gotta tip my hat as far as the agent selection process is concerned. I mean, a lot of people look at G2 and they always think it's synopsis for how they play. You see Leaf, you think you're gonna get the Vis, but not the case here. I mean, Jogamo on the Gecko, just flexing for the Icebox. The double initiator worked out so well, or the double controller, excuse me, worked out so well for G2, especially for the Harbor. When you think about Harbor on Icebox, it's this right here, how influential you can actually get in towards that A site. And I think that G2 just had a really good feeling of how C9 were going to be playing pretty standard. Net didn't have an answer on the Killjoy from the Harbor, and all the executes that were coming through. G2 were able to win 13-5. Leaf led the way 19-11 on that map number 1. Now going over towards Haven. This was G2's pick, which was very concerning if you are a G2 fan, but hey, it's G2 at the end of the day, and they need to bolster their map pool because going up against other international teams, specifically T1, that they lost this map to back at Masters Bangkok, it was not looking too good, and I think that that was a continuation here. They're trying to force a lot of things, trying to force retakes, trying to work on different executes. The composition is fine. It's just, you could just generally tell that G2 were trying to work on things because they knew that was looming in the distance for Masters Toronto should they end up getting top 3 in the playoff bracket. But Cloud9 looked pretty damn good throughout all of this. Net on the Cypher went 15-7. Oxy on the Jet went 19-13, and realistically, it was all on the offense. If you ask me, I mean, Cypher going that huge on offense is mega. You get that spike planted, very difficult to try to retake on the C site or let alone over by A. So it's gonna force the Pearl decider in towards a map 3 we go. And you like to think, I mean, G2 probably have a lot of time spent on Pearl throughout all the decider maps that they saw at Masters Bangkok and throughout the kickoffs as well, and it was on display here. A very close back and forth half. The first 4 were won by G2. We had a back and forth affair until we got over towards the side swap, and on defense, that's where G2 locked in. They lost a couple rounds in tandem of one another, but at the end, G2 were able to win 13-11. They're the number 1 seed walking away from this, and Trent had a Herculean performance, 44-34-5 on the Teo, had a 78% KAST, and that's exactly what you want out of the Teo. Has so much annoying utility just to be able to find early damage to set up the entry frag for Jogamo, who also had a flex of his lifetime. Again, that Gecko on Icebox, got to be taking note of that. You never know what you're going to get out of G2. But now we have our final series to go over as far as the weekend is concerned. Win and you are in towards the playoffs. I'm talking about Leviatan versus NRG. And Leviatan have been feeling themselves as of late. You know, they got that win versus Furia, and they thought that that was really the bee's knees, but they have to go up against NRG just to try to compete in towards the playoffs. And this one got a little bit out of the way of possible. I mean, in towards the Fracture, this was NRG's pick. It was a very close first half where Leviatan did have the upper leg, but then NRG on the defensive side just started to figure things out. And this is a team that you knew that they have playoff potential if they're able to get everything going for themselves, especially with the roster that they do have on the screen, right? I mean, Sam, very accurate shot. Brock is also very good on the Teo as well. And NRG definitely let Leviatan have it. I mean, being down as far as the first half is concerned and then fighting back the way that they did was admirable. And then in towards the overtime, they lost the initial, much like how they, because they didn't lose the pistols, it's not exactly where they felt comfort losing the opening round of overtime. But then they ripped the last 3 straight. They now have a 1-0 lead with Mata leading the way on the race, 25-17 from that map number 1. In towards the Icebox we go. Leviatan's pick. And you really do feel like that for Leviatan, it makes sense to fight here on Icebox, right? I mean, you don't really see it all too often out of NRG. You don't really see it all too often from Leviatan. So go for Pro, see what you remember, and it just wasn't that great. I mean, the first half, again, very close back and forth affair until we got NRG on defense, and then they reminded Leviatan, let alone the world, that it is Icebox. Defensive rotations on top of defensive rotations come through continuously, and NRG's comp let them absolutely have it. I mean, the Reyna out of Mata was egregious. They also had Ethan on the KO. You had Gecko being played by Brock. Pick a way, and you're going to find an entry in towards one of these sites. The retakes were amazing from NRG on defense. Leviatan were always able to find the site, but when you have so many darn flashes available, so much utility to be able to find information, yeah, NRG, they are absolutely going to take that every single day. They win the series 2-0. They are now the 4th team coming away from Group Omega, going in towards playoffs. And playoffs, by the way, they're going to be happening right around the corner. And as far as all of these results are concerned, this is how things did go down. 2G and Loud from Group Alpha eliminated. They won't be making towards playoffs. We'll see them in a couple months' time. Same thing for Leviatan on the opposite side in Furia. That graphic is a little bit backwards, but don't worry about that. NRG absolutely did qualify in that 4th seed. They'll be joining Cloud9, G2, and MIBR from Group Omega. And then as far as Group and Alpha is concerned, Crew Esports did get that #1 seed, and playoffs should be a very fun time when it comes down to it. Here's how things did shake up. Again, if you do win out your groups, you do start in the winners round 2. Crew won't be facing G2. Crew and G2 are actually in 2 different sides of that bracket, but MIBR versus 100 Thieves should bang. Sentinels versus Cloud9 should be a banger as well, and then NRG and EG being 4th seed in their respective groups will be waiting there in lower round 1. Here's how playoffs will be shaken up. They're going to be starting off here on Thursday with that MIBR versus 100 Thieves matchup, as well as Sentinels versus Cloud9. And then we're going to be continuing this all the way in towards Sunday, where we're going to be seeing a couple more teams be eliminated. But upper bracket finals and grand finals, that's actually happening on the 2nd of May and then the 4th of May, respectively, to be able to crown the VCT Americas champion. Lots to unpack for sure. You want to make sure you go back and watch as many of those matches as possible, and also tune in on Thursday as we're going to be breaking down a lot of those matches ahead of the weekend.
Exactly, and we're excited for that, but let's go ahead and jump over to Europe, who are still in their week phase, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of those games that went down. Starting, we did have BBL versus G8. Jailmates did end up losing 2-0, so now they are going to be eliminated from playoffs, but let's take a look at another map where we had Giantx versus Fnatic. Map 1 went to Ascent. What was Giantx's pick? They would end up losing 13-10, though. Giantx did start off the first half on defense, or actually, they would win 13-10, my mistake. They would end up going 7-5 on offense in the first half. On defense, though, they would win the first 2 rounds and find the final 4 needed to win that map. On to map number 2, Lotus, Fnatic's pick. This map, they would look a lot better. They would win 13-5, winning the first half 9-3, and then find the final rounds needed. Onto map 3, Haven the Decider. This would go even, where we would see a 6-6 first half, but then we would have Fnatic winning out the remaining in the defense to end up winning that map and taking the series 2-1. So congratulations to Fnatic for taking that win. They'll continue their unbeaten streak so far, and GX unfortunately will get eliminated with this as they have not won any games. Now moving on, well, as we take a look here, exactly, Fnatic taking this win, doing a great job by Giantx, is that 65-45 or 56-45 KD. So great job by them once again taking that win. Expected what you would expect from the #1 seed going against the number 0 or the last place in their group. Now moving on to the next matches on Friday, we did have Foot taking on KC. Foot would end up winning that 2-1, and then on to our next map, it would be NaVi versus PH. These teams were pretty close together, but it would be a 2-0 win for Team Heretics in the end. First pick from Team Heretics would go to Haven, where they would end up winning 13-3. It was a slaughter. This was their pick, and they showed why. They exactly dominated this map, only dropping those 3 rounds and getting up a massive win. Now moving on to map number 2, Pearl, which was Navi's pick. They showed a little bit better form going into Pearl, where they would end up taking 8 rounds, but it would be Navi again taking the win. Navi going down early in the first half, but would bring it back when they were going on offense. They were much more successful, were able to get the win. Here they would pick it up and go 13-8. So great job to them picking up that 2-0 win this weekend, and much needed for their seeding to see if they can maybe get that second seed in their group to give them a little bit more of a leeway going into the playoffs. But remember, we do have one more week of EMEA Valorant before we go into their playoffs. So week 5, let's take a look at the schedules and standings. Here we see the current standings. As I said, Giantx will be eliminated, and APEC as well were eliminated with 0 wins. Looking at Group Omega, Gentlemates was eliminated as well, and Koi Unfortunately, no wins either did get eliminated from their group, but as we still do have 1 week left, we'll have to see if Team Heretics Fnatic were able to take that top spot, as well as Liquid versus BBL looking for those top spot in their groups as well. So, match schedule. Wednesday, we start with BBL versus Boot, Giantx versus Apex. On Thursday, we have General Mates versus Koi and Vitality versus NaVi. And then on Friday, Liquid versus KC and Fnatic versus Team Heretics. So take a look at those matches. We'll have to see who are able to take those first place and then see who makes it into the playoffs as well.
That's a lot to do as far as Valorant is concerned, and for League of Legends, as well as Call of Duty. So let's go ahead and put the games on the shelf just for a short little while as we get our quick little news roundup as far as this past weekend is concerned. We're going to be starting off with ESL Counter-Strike. They have now put out the interest to if nobody else is going to be able to beat Team Vitality. Why not you? Can you step up and deny Team Vitality the Grand Slam? Well, go ahead and try your best because there's $100,000 extra up for the grabs if you could somehow beat Team Vitality.
Let's talk about massive milestones in Counter-Strike. Kerrigan and Apex will be attending their 20th major.
We also had the Green Wall back in action this past weekend, as well as HCS Arlington start off their entirety of the season, where the Green Wall of OpTic, Texas actually made the lower bracket run happen. Insanity incarnate throughout the entirety of the Texas Major. We had Transformers blow up. OpTic lost to Wutum, who's a mouse and keyboard player in Nemesis, in group play, but then still came back to be able to win the entire thing. So congratulations to Bound, Formal, Renegade, Legend, and of course for their coach of Lunchbox on the HCS Arlington win. But that's all we have as far as the news is concerned. Make sure you get involved with us as far as X, Instagram, whatever your social media preference is concerned with us at Today in Esports, or just find us in our own personalized ads on one of those social medias. But hey, Counter-Strike is back in action. Finally, we had a week off, and it feels like we were gone on a month-long vacation, and now the parents are finally back from vacation, and they brought some saltwater taffy. IEM Melbourne is getting underway here very, very shortly, and at the time of this recording, we actually already have matches being played. The way that IEM Melbourne does play out, go figure, like most Counter-Strike tournaments, we got 16 teams, baby, and they're all going to be separated into a single or double elimination, GSL-style group, where the top 3 of those groups end up going in towards a single elimination bracket. Here is going to be Group A. Very heavy hitters. Mal's in the same group as both 3D Max, the Mongols, and then Complexity you saw right there. They're actually here because Team Spirit did not want to partake. So I think that this one is very much so up for grabs on who's going to be joining both Mal's as well as maybe the Mongols. But Group B, we do have the big dogs, Vitality. They are back in action, maybe trying to defend their chip. Let's be honest, they're probably the favorites to be able to win here. They got their match 1 win versus FlyQuest. VP's here versus Team Liquid. New Falcons with Monacy. And you can see right there on the right side of your screen, he is staring that op down with ever so grace, taking on Saw. MIBR versus NaVi. And again, top 3, you qualify for the single elimination bracket. But there is a little bit of a caveat here. If you do win your group outright, again, through that upper bracket final, you will actually get a first-round bye for that playoff bracket. So it does mean a lot for a lot of these teams. In the way that the brackets are all being played out, you would be surprised if a lot of top teams actually get upset, but there can only be 3 from each of those 2 groups. But honestly speaking, I don't know which one's the group is after this point.
I don't either, and especially with Monacy joining Falcons, we'll have to see how they would go, but they have Vitality in their group. So can we see maybe an upset early, or is it going to take time for Monacy to get used to his new team? No Spirit, no Don't. Unfortunately, we don't have to see how they're going to stack up versus everyone as well, but it's still going to be a banger.
It's still going to be a banger, man. I'm super excited for IEM Melbourne. Again, action is kicking off at the time of this recording, and it will be continuing all throughout this week. So you want to make sure you tune in on Thursday's episode as we shape up Boca Raton. Call of Duty Major 3 is going down, as well as IEM Melbourne. We got League of Legends action going off all around the world, and VCT playoffs finally getting underway as well. It's been a hell of an episode, a lot to unpack, so make sure you rewind, subscribe, and be back here on Thursday for that episode as we go over everything. This has been Today in Esports.